Number 10.
Let me start off by saying I'm 18 now and still remember this perfectly, as it's the creepiest and most confusing thing to ever happen to me. I was 11 and lived with my mum. My parents are divorced. Also, I should note I live about a mile or so from any other houses. Okay, so I was at my house and my friend was spending the night. We were playing outside around 7 at night and my mum got a call that she needed to come into work. We were far out away from the house, so my mum locked the door and left a note for us that she would be back in about an hour. A few minutes later, we were about to go inside when we saw the note. Bored of playing around, we went up into my treehouse to wait. About 15 or 20 minutes later, we noticed a man walking down the road, which was really odd for where we lived. Also, he had something in his hands. He stopped directly in front of my house and started a chainsaw and then just stood there staring at my house. He did this for what felt like forever before just turning around and walking away. Me and my friend just laid on our stomachs in the treehouse till my mum got home and then we went inside. We never told anyone. I don't know who that man was or what he wanted, but I like to imagine it was just some kid playing a prank.
Number 9.
This happened June 4th, 2015, to me. Something happened, crazy as shit, last night. I ended up having my boyfriend call the police, and the police checked the house. I was home alone and working on Annabelle's Paws, watching a YouTube video. 18 minutes into the video, I heard one of the kitchen cabinets slam. I switched the video and then called my boyfriend and explained what happened to him. A few minutes of debating whether to check it out or not, I heard another slam of the same sound. So I left the bedroom and headed into the kitchen and saw nothing. But my dog was staring into the kitchen and then stared at me. Since I saw nothing, I went back into the bedroom but closed the doors and locked the one I could. I heard footsteps a few minutes later and went to hide in the bedroom closet with the door shut and told my boyfriend to keep the police on speed dial. I then heard footsteps near the bedroom and I got my boyfriend ready to call the police. Once he did, I heard footsteps inside the bedroom around where the closet door was. The police called my phone a few seconds after that happened and went through the usual of what they ask. While that was happening, I heard a noise I can't describe beside it sounding like a joint popping, or when your mouth is stuck and it finally cracks. This came from right in front of the closet door, and the police got there 1 to 2 minutes after that. I left the closet when they arrived, and the doors to the bedroom were shut and the bathroom light on as I left it. I went downstairs and stayed outside with my grandparents because they got home right after the police got here. After the police checked the house, they explained that the side door was open and unlocked. My grandma said she left it like that when they left. Other than that, they said it was fine and nothing looked off or wrong. I'm not sure what happened or what was in my house, but I felt like I was unsafe and I was going to be attacked. I also know it wasn't in my mind.
Number 8.
I was known for being the weird one of my group of friends. Not in a bad way, more of in a funny way. I would constantly look up the weirdest possible things on the internet to show my friends. I would even listen to YouTubers narrate messed up stories so I could retell them to my group of friends. It was through people like this which I found out of the Tor browser. I'm 16 years old and good with computers, so of course I downloaded the Tor browser and thought nothing could happen. Clicking that download button was the worst decision I ever made in my life. After about a week, I already explored many disturbing websites on the browser and of course sent links of all of them to my friends on Skype. It was on one summer day when I found a site selling products made of human skin, similar to humanleather.com, however, way more disturbing. It had every imaginable article of clothing and accessory, and it was so much cheaper than humanleather.com. I copied the link and pasted it on Skype group chat with my friends. As I was about to leave, I saw a box open up on the bottom right of my screen. It was a chat box and it said,
"Thanks for sharing the website."
I assumed it was a user or even the owner. It then said,
"Would you like to buy something?"
I jokingly typed back, "Of course, let me have a look." It was at this moment when I realized how stupid I really was. The chat wrote back and said,
"Great. I'll come by your place and you can look at some of our products."
Now I started to fill up with fear, and I typed that I was simply joking and that it would not be necessary. The person replied,
"I can joke too."
Now I was creeped out and instantly left the website. I told my friends of the whole encounter and we all did our fair share of joking about the website. We even found out that the website was based in New York City, which we all lived in, making it even more creepy to us. However, after many further changes in the subject, all the fear or worry I had was gone and I went to sleep perfectly that night. I woke up home alone with my dog as usual. I slept late and my parents usually left to go shopping early to beat the crowds, especially during the summertime. I went to my phone, which had been charging overnight, and found numerous texts from my friends to check my Skype as soon as possible. I ran to my computer and it would not turn on. Thinking only of the urgency my friend's text message seemed to have, I proceeded to my iPhone's Skype app and found that in the group chat at around 2:30 AM, my account left a message saying, "I can joke too," and a picture of my house. This is when I lifted my bedroom blinds to view the front of my house where the picture had been taken from. I saw a van parked out front with a figure in the front seat. Noticing me in the window, it got out and slammed the door shut. My dog started to bark as she normally does when a car door slams. The figure was a Caucasian man in his late 40s or early 50s with long grey hair and a bearded face. He was dressed in all black and wore sunglasses to conceal his eyes. He opened the van's back doors and pulled out a box and started to walk towards my front door. My dog freaks out now, and she only does this when someone is at the door. My heart is pounding as I ran and grabbed her, seeing the man outside the door. He noticed me again and started to kick the door down, and soon enough succeeded just after my dog and I got to my bedroom and I locked my door. I called the cops with my iPhone as my dog was scratching my bedroom door, attracting him. My floors are creaky and need to be redone, and I could hear cracks going down the hallway getting louder and closer with each step. I noticed my collectible New York Yankees baseball bat, which I got a year earlier at a special game. I grabbed it and waited for the man to kick my door down. He soon did just that, and I swung it at his face, hitting him directly in the nose. This disorientated him and I ran right past him. My dog chased after me thinking I was playing a game. I then grabbed my dog and ran outside, hearing fast-paced stomping down the hallway. I slammed the front door and ran to a neighbour's house, who immediately called my parents. The cops arrived around 10 minutes later. The van was gone, but there were 3 boxes stacked on top of each other on my porch, all of which contained clothing poorly made of human skin. The cops told me that he was a serial killer who had killed 3 others around my age already. He would find his victims through means of taking over and tracking their computers. I showed them his website after I finally got my computer to work, and they tracked the man down. He was arrested and sent away for life. His apartment had a closet with a suit of human skin. I now wonder that if it had not been for my collectible bat, I would have ended up in there too, and ever since this incident, my parents blocked most websites on my computer, so nothing like this will ever happen again.
Number 7.
We used to rent an old barn-style house that we owned out to people who either needed a place to stay for a while or short time period. The house was located on our several-acre property, quite a distance from our actual house, but still within eyesight from the second floor of our house. My room's only window faced the barn house. Between the barn and our house there was a field of alfalfa. One night, at 11:30ish, we had a visitor knock at our door asking to stay at the barn house for a while. My dad told him sure. The man was young and ratty in appearance, all black clothes and matted hair. He stayed for 3 months, or roughly. Once in a while during the night, I would witness a small mass of people dressed in black, walking up to the barn house and entering at 12 AM. As I watched out my window, I waited for the lights of the house to turn on, but they never did. I'd tell my parents, but they never believed me. This usually occurred on Sundays or Mondays. I always fell asleep before seeing them exit. I gave no thought to it much after it happened, so when it actually did stop occurring, I didn't notice. It had been a while since the man had paid for his rent, so my dad went up to the house to talk to the man. He didn't find anyone there, but what he did find was really disturbing. He never told me directly when it happened, but he told me years later. I had to eavesdrop to him talking to my mum when he returned from the barn house. He said as he approached the barn house, he smelled the foulest smell he had ever smelt. Taken aback from the stench, he decided to continue to the door. Knocking on the door, he realized it was ajar, and the knocking pushed it open further. Inside, he could see the walls were scribbled on with what looked like crayons. Only shades of reds and oranges and browns were used though. It looked like some hieroglyphic code, he had said. In the corner, there were lumps of smelly old clothes. The furniture had been moved to the kitchen where the water was still running. In the bathroom, the toilet had not been flushed, and because of this, the tub had been used as a toilet as well. He then said the creepiest thing. He said that in the back of the room there were carcasses of reptiles, many reptiles, piled in the center of a blood circle. The cops were contacted and we moved a month later. We never rented anything out again. Recently I visited the old house. The barn house has been partly demolished and our house was overrun with plant growth, abandoned most likely since.
Number 6.
Back when I was around 10 years old, in the summer, my next door neighbour had a huge family gathering and my family hung out with them during the outdoor activities. My friend introduced me to a lot of his cousins, nieces and nephews, most of them younger than me. We decided it'd be fun if we took our bikes and went riding. Now in my neighbourhood, us kids usually rode around the pool parking lot next to a large hill. This was around the corner that wasn't the best view for parents to keep an eye on for us. But when we rode up that day, it wasn't a big deal, as another friend lived right next to the pool. Well, we were riding in the pool lot when I noticed a large burly man with an unleashed dog at his heels. Now, at the time our neighbourhood was close in socialisation and I didn't recognise this guy. Also, our HOA was very strict on rules with new people and dogs were always to be kept on leashes. I ignored this guy at first, but then he started talking to my friend's cousin. He was asking her to call his dog, saying that he liked kids and was normally disobedient. He wanted her to come closer and call him back, but like I said, the dog was right at his heels, obviously not disobeying. I felt really weird and nervous around this guy. It was when my friend's cousin started getting closer that I freaked out. I warned my friend and got him to take the really little kids back to the house in a casual way in case the man gave chase. I immediately yanked on his cousin, telling her we needed to get out of here. She protested at first, but finally I had enough and dragged her away, somehow able to maneuver my bike at the same time. She finally got the message and started running, but stupid me stopped at the bottom of the hill and looked back. The man hadn't left, and instead, he just stared straight at me. I never felt so frozen in fear. When I saw him take a step forward, I bolted and found my friend already stammering to his parents. I told mine and they started calling numbers, and it wasn't long before we saw a car speeding out of the neighbourhood. We never saw the man again, and to this day I never stray too far from older company, knowing that if I hadn't gotten that girl out, something bad would have happened.
Number 5.
This experience happened to me when I was 5 or 6 years old. I am now 30, and there was 4 of us in my house. My mother, father, and brother who is 4 years older than me. It had thunderstormed earlier in the evening. I know that whenever there was a thunderstorm in the summertime, it was unbearable to try and sleep upstairs due to the fact that it always got so super humid. So my brother and I asked my father if we could sleep on the couch in the living room that night. My father said that we could, and we could sleep on the couch in the dining room because my brother and I were always so scared to sleep alone, especially downstairs. The way my brother and I were sleeping was he would lay so that our feet would be touching. He was facing the living room window that points towards the front yard, and I was facing the kitchen. I remember waking up and seeing a dark figure in the kitchen standing at the sink and facing outside through the window that was directly above the sink. Now, the only reason I could see so well was because while sleeping, the skies cleared and the moon was bright enough to light up some areas in the house. At first I was super creeped out because I felt like that was really not the norm. As I focused on the shadowy outline of the figure standing there, I noticed a stream of slow-moving smoke rising above the figure's head. This immediately made me think it was my mother because she was a smoker. So finally I got the courage to speak up. I called out, "Mum?" Nothing happened. Now I want to be as accurate as possible with this story. I remember thinking in my little head that the figure related to a womanly figure, so that's why I called out my mother's name. After I realized nothing happened, I called out Dad. Still nothing. I remember thinking, why did I say Dad? Because a huge part of me felt like it was a female figure. Once it didn't respond a second time, I called out, "Ma Tunte?" Ma Tunte means aunt in French. I was brought up in a very French-speaking family. After I called out my aunt, the figure slowly, and I mean very slowly, started to turn in my direction. As it spun around facing my direction, it bent down very slowly, while opening its arms wide. I compare the stance as one would bend over and open arms if a small child was running to them for a hug. At this point, I know that this was not anyone or anything that lives in this house. I then started to think about running off the couch and upstairs to my parents' home. But I remember thinking it may get me because the house layout was the kitchen dining room and the living room all connected as one big circle with the staircase directly in the center. I remember thinking if I would have enough time to get off the couch, run upstairs without this thing running around on the dining room side and grabbing my leg through the side of the staircase. The figure was approximately 20 feet away from me. I decided to run. My brother woke and was still on the couch when I booked it upstairs, only to find my dad also in bed with my mum, even though he promised to sleep in the dining room. I tried to explain to both of them that there was someone in the house. My dad ran downstairs with his pistol he kept and did a room-to-room search, including the basement. All the doors were locked and no sign of entry. To this day I know what I saw, and I see it still as clearly as I did when I was a child. Lastly, my mum and dad split up when I was 7 and put the house up for sale. The new owners moved in and had a son who was a year ahead of me in the same school. 2 years after the incident, this boy came up to me and asked me if I have experienced any weird things in that house, because the night before he asked me this, he was in bed in his room and he said he woke up to see a figure come into his room through his closet. It stood staring at him for half a minute, then slowly walked back into the closet without opening the door. I will never set foot back into that house again.
Number 4.
When I was little, around the age of 7 or 8, I lived in a 200-year-old house in Waddington, New York. The house was extremely close to the St. Lawrence River. It was used in the time of slavery to capture escaping slaves and hold them until their owners came to claim them. Some of the slaves, however, weren't alive by the time their owners got there. The events of one day are still pretty embedded into my mind, although I may struggle with the details. It was a pretty hot summer day and I was around the age of 7 when this happened. Me and my friend Mason were in the pool in my backyard. We were super close in friendship since we played hockey together and went to the same school. Him and I were just getting out when my cat sprinted out of the house. I was a little confused since the old thing never really moved for a thing. We continued on into the house, grabbing some food and drying off. The two of us decided that he should sleep over, so I asked my mother, and of course she said yes. Time went on as we played video games and watched Star Wars. My mother said it was time to head off to bed, and so off we went. Now, enough with the boring stuff. Here's when shit gets weird. Mason and I were walking up the stairs. The stairs in that house creaked loudly due to the age of the house, but living there so long I got used to it. However, there was only two of us, yet there were 3 pairs of feet walking up the stairs. I could feel a presence behind me. I turned around thinking it was my mum or dad, but no one was there. I was pretty scared right now, but didn't tell Mason, thinking he would want to leave. We reached the top of the stairs and walked into my room where beds were set up on the floor. We each changed into our pajamas and got into our separate beds. We didn't sleep though, because no one sleeps at sleepovers. I turned on the TV and we watched late night television until one of us, that one being Mason, fell asleep. I continued to watch TV until the television just went black. It didn't turn off or anything, it still had a small bit of light emitting from it, but it had no sound or picture. I shook Mason awake and he asked me what happened. I asked Mason to turn on the light since I was the stereotypical 7-year-old girl that was afraid of everything. He agreed and began to get up, but something made him sit down right away. It was a voice. We were scared shitless when it spoke the words that will be branded into my mind until I die. The man will see us. We just stood there in utter shock and terror. The voice was low, yet there didn't seem to be a dark aura in the room. Mason and I didn't want to move, we just looked around. Then, about for what seemed like hours, but was probably only a minute, something spoke again, but it was broken up and we could barely hear it. Okay. I jumped back and my 7-year-old mind kicked in. I tried calling for my mum, but I was too petrified to even move. The night went on and nothing happened. Me and Mason finally dozed off out of exhaustion, and in the morning we had to confirm that the experience wasn't a dream by explaining it to each other. I slept in my parents' room until my older sister moved in and shared a room with me. She still says that I sometimes talk in my sleep about the nice dark man.
Number 3.
Well, in my house, people who visit generally are the ones who have creepy things happen to them, but strangely not me. Even my father has had strange stuff happen to him. In fact, one time a friend went to visit, he knocked on the gate and my father told him from the balcony of his office to come in, and they both heard some people yelling inside of the house. They heard my mother, me and my sister shouting as if we did something to piss my mother off. So my father told him to go in and maybe when he goes in we would calm down. So he came in and called my name. The yelling stopped briefly but then continued. My father went into my room, which was between 2 bathrooms, and my parents' bedroom in the opposite side, a little further distance from mine. When he entered, he started to hear the screams getting louder, as if they were approaching him. He began to freak out and ran out to the hallway where he could hear the screams, as if the people that were screaming were in front of him, and he began to feel a presence. He ran out as fast as he could and told my father. They went together inside the house and they could both hear the screams. So my father told him to stay downstairs as he went to check. My father then came downstairs and said he did not know what the hell was going on and to go with him to his office. A while after that, myself, my mum and my sister arrived. We were at the park the entire time.
Number 2.
Alright, here goes. I'll try to remember all the details, but it's been a few years. So it started when I was in the 6th grade. At the time my little brother and sister went to school in a different town, and my mum and dad did also, and my older sister was homeschooled, but she spent a lot of time with her boyfriend, now brother-in-law. So I was home alone every day, 5 days a week. One day, before Christmas. I was homesick and my sister was there also. Our house was relatively small, so the couch was set up where it faced a small hallway where me and my sister's room was and the bathroom. But all I could see was my sister's room. So I just passed out of nowhere. And when I woke up, I was in a sleep paralysis state, or whatever the term is. All I could do was look around. I was facing my sister's room and I looked and there was this thing peeking around the corner looking directly at me. It was like a shadowy figure, but it was hooded, and the hood was covered with holes, and its face was just about rotted and his eyes were just black pits. And when I made eye contact, it was like the world was on mute and it was just me and it. It looked like it was saying something, but I couldn't make it out. I do remember having extreme chills, but that's about it. I started to panic and I tried to scream, but I couldn't. A good 5-10 minutes passed and it ended and the thing was gone. So I got up crying my eyes out to run to my sister's room, knocked on her door and told her about it and so on. But it doesn't end there. The next year came by with no more sightings till I came home from school one afternoon. It was just me and my dog, a brindle pug. So I turned on my PlayStation and started to play Assassin's Creed 3. About an hour in, I hear the sound of someone standing up from my bed. That spring sound. I was confused because I was sure I was home alone, and even my dog heard it because he was looking at the same direction. I got real nervous, so I went to grab my pocket knife and I went to my sister's room and knocked. But surprise, surprise, there was no answer. I opened the door and there was nothing. I checked every nook and cranny, but nothing. Every day for the rest of the year, the same thing occurred, and by then I was panicked and scared, not sure what it was. Every time I was alone, I could feel eyes on me like someone was right behind me. But this is where it gets interesting. It turns out not only me and my sister have seen it, but my dad has, the neighbor beside us, and our family friend down the road has also. And no one is sure what the hell it is. I'm sure I've seen this more than once in that house, but only during sleep paralysis states. Fast forward to now, we now live in a better house which is exactly 400 miles away, and I haven't experienced anything else.
Number 1.
My most personal scariest moment that ever happened was just a few weeks back at my workplace. I work at Dairy Queen. Let me start off the story by telling you that I'm a 17-year-old hockey player. I'm 5'11" and around 200 pounds. It was a normal Monday night, slow and boring. The store closes every night at 10 PM. So once it's around 9, I started to close. On my way to take out the trash, I had the feeling that I was being watched. I shrugged it off, seeing that my DQ was located in a town, and there may have just been someone walking home. My experiences on the way back were even worse though. The only door to get into the store was in the very back. This was a walk up and not a walk in. So needless to say, it was dark. I made my way down the dark alley using my phone's flashlight to guide the way. I couldn't help but notice that something was not right. I did not see him until I rounded the final corner to get the door. A small homeless man was sitting in a ball crying. "Hey man, are you alright?" I said in a voice trying to sound helpful. He grumbled at me, so I didn't understand all of it, but the message I could understand was, "Rather be at your house." I stepped around him, ready to fight if it came to it, but the older man didn't make a move at me. The rest of the night was fairly normal. I closed up and drove home. I parked my car in the driveway, got out and started to walk inside of my house when I heard one of my car doors open. A figure got out and ran. I went to run after him, but I thought it was more important to make sure that my house was completely secure. so that whoever just got out of my car couldn't get inside my house. I locked my car, went inside and locked all the doors and windows. The rest of the night was great. I had the entire house to myself because my parents went to go celebrate their anniversary. I Skyped with my girlfriend until she fell asleep and decided it was probably time for me to get some sleep too. After I used the bathroom and finally decided to get some rest, I went over to lower my blinds. I don't know why, it just freaks me out to have them open while I sleep. As I got up to lower them, I noticed something standing in my driveway. I couldn't really see what it was doing, but I definitely could tell that it was someone there. I lowered the blinds a bit so that whoever was out there would have a tougher time seeing me, but I was still looking through the small crack that I left. From where he was, he looked like he was hiding behind something, maybe trying to hide himself. I was dying to get a better look. The curiosity was getting to me. I quietly went downstairs and went over to the garage. I flicked one of the switches in the garage that signaled a floodlight right outside my window to turn on. I quickly ran up to my room hoping that the man was still there. I lifted up my blind to the level I had it before, and what I saw still sends shivers down my spine. The homeless man that I saw earlier was standing in the middle of my driveway looking directly at me. I shut the blinds as fast as I could. I pulled out my phone and called the police. The operator told me to stay on the line. I told her that I locked myself in my room and all I had to protect myself with was a baseball bat and a hunting knife. I stood at the corner of the doorway, keeping me hidden from whoever entered, but a good angle to swing from. The sound of sirens filled the air and I was no longer feeling as scared. Still aimed at the door, I heard the police coming from behind me, that being where my window was, and heard them pull in. They got out rather fast and started to scream, "Get down! Get down!" I turned around to look out my window and all I saw was the small homeless man sitting on the small piece of roof directly outside my window. He had a large knife in his hand. The cops were able to get him down without hurting anyone. I still had not left my room. I opened the window to talk to them. "Do you think that you can look around my house as well?" The 3 cops standing there all agreed, probably because this was the most action they'd gotten in a while. "We're going to enter through your garage door," they said in a militaristic way. "You're going to need the passcode. The garage is locked," I yelled down. The cops looked confused and then alert. "Stay where you are and keep that door locked." I was really freaked out now. I repositioned myself at the door and I could hear the police officer clearing rooms. They finally got to the 2nd floor, the floor I was on, and it didn't take long for me to hear them screaming, "Get down! Get on the fucking ground!" After I heard some clanking, presumably from the cops' handcuffs, one of the cops told me through the door that it was okay to come out now. I opened up my door to see the 2 other cops escorting another man down the stairs. The other cop greeted me. "You got very lucky tonight, son. Good thing you called. That man over there was parked right out your door with a knife, waiting for you." Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed the video, and make sure you hang around for more videos, as there'll be plenty more to come.